Welcome back to our humble little Minecraft base. In episode 1, I transformed the first few rooms of this stronghold into a fully functional starter base. In episode 2, I built this cherry tree to act as the entrance to the base, and I built these end pillars that surround it, which are actually just a creeper farm in disguise. Today, I want to make a lot more progress on the base by renovating several more rooms. This means giving them a visual makeover and packing them with redstone gadgets. In fact, by the time this video is over, there will be about 15 new machines installed into the base. Let's get started. Before we get started on any redstone, I want to finish up the entrance, because right now, this tree is just floating in the water. I used blue stained glass to make a drop chute, that way it blends in with the water and can't be seen from the surface. I don't have any sponges yet, so I just filled the whole thing with netherrack and dug it back out to remove the water. Since I'm calling this build the Stronghold renovation project, I want to use rooms that were naturally generated. I'll do my best to stick with the natural shape of each room and decorate within those parameters. It's part of the goal that I set in episode 1 to make sure that the Stronghold maintains its original identity. However, since this room has to line up with the cherry tree, I'm making an exception and building this one from scratch. I'll be using the same palette that I have been for the rest of the Stronghold. Stone brick walls with some cracked stone brick for texture, and a foundation and a site at the bottom. I made a little platform with waterlogged blocks to break my fall on the way down. For some extra flair, I'm going to add pillars of lava around the perimeter of the room. And as final touches, I put some andesite stairs around the ceiling. Now all I've got to do is connect this room to the actual stronghold, and the entrance will be complete. I used cobblestone stairs to mimic the staircases that generate naturally in strongholds. I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. I think it's going to be a fitting entrance hall. While I was searching random seeds to find the perfect world to call home, I came across this about 100 blocks from the stronghold. A zombie spawner and a skeleton spawner right next to each other, an occurrence far too rare to let it go to waste. I'm going to turn these spawners into a double mob grinder. I started with a small killing chamber with separate holding cells for the zombies and the skeletons. I ended up expanding this room a bit later on to give myself some more breathing room. I made a little mossy cobble gradient on the floor and covered the walls in stone. The spawners themselves were pretty easy to automate. You just dig them out and make some water streams. From what I understand, there are ways to optimize the efficiency of these farms, but the spawn rate improvements are pretty minimal, so I just improvised until I got something that worked. With everything set up, I now have myself a pretty decent XP farm. This will hold us over until we build an Enderman farm. However, the work isn't quite done yet. I still need a way to quickly travel between the stronghold and the dungeon. After mulling it over for a while, I decided it would be fitting to connect the stronghold to the dungeon with a man-made mineshaft. I started on the stronghold end and worked my way towards the spawners. I made sure to add lots of twists, turns, ups, and downs so that it would be a fun minecart ride later on. After the initial dig, I added some unnecessary branches just to make it look a bit more realistic. I made it back to the dungeon and realized I was one block off. No big deal though, it's a quick fix. With the path dug, I went back through to build all of the wooden supports out of oak fences and planks. Now for the rails. I don't have a gold farm yet, and I don't like spending my raw gold on crafting. I think the raw gold blocks are really pretty, and since they're hard to get, it feels weird spending them on powered rails, so I mostly stuck to iron ones. The powered rails I did add were crafted solely from gold that I got from trips to the nether. On either end of the railway, I set up an automatic minecart system. With these installed, the moment you arrive at your destination, the minecart will immediately be broken, collected, and transported into a dispenser. Then, when you're ready for another ride, just press the button to release a minecart. This may not be the fastest way to travel, but I'm really happy I chose to do it this way. Minecart travel is a lost art, and I'm happy to have this railway in my world. Okay, let's move on to the next area. I want to transform this section of the stronghold into my farming area, starting with this room that I've been using as a makeshift cactus farm. It's one of those perfectly square rooms, and it's connected to a jail cell area. I'm gonna pack 3 separate bone meal based crop farms in here, and a storage room to store the items. I cleared out some space behind the room to build a moss farm. I tried designing one myself, and it was a good learning experience, but I wasn't able to make one that was fully reliable. So instead, I found a great tutorial on YouTube by this creator, and it worked perfectly. If you want to build one for yourself, the tutorial is linked in the description. Big thanks to that creator for making it. Once it was fully functional, I cleared out the jail cell area and turned it into a small storage room. Behind each chest column, I built a redstone item filter to automatically sort the items for me. I picked a farm design that produces both moss blocks and bone meal, which is very convenient but will lower the rates of each. Now that I'm passively producing bone meal, I want to make 2 more farms that can put it to good use. That's what this front room will be used for. I want to build 2 nano farms, one for crops that grow like wheat, and one for cocoa beans. These farms seemed pretty simple, so I decided to make up my own design. I am certain that there is a simpler way to build both of these farms, but I'm happy with my bumbly designs. To use the farm, I just have to load the dispensers with bone meal and hold down right click with the crop in my hand. The machine does the rest. And there we have it, another room down. This next one is a small and completely unnecessary addition to the library from episode 1. I want to add a lapis dispenser underneath the enchantment table. I set up a pressure plate that when walked over will make 2 observers look at each other. That makes a redstone clock that will rapidly fire a dropper. So if I ever need lapis while I'm in the library, I just have to stand on this pressure plate. The excess lapis can be tossed onto this red carpet and is sent back into the dropper. On my way to the next section, I came across a zombie villager. I haven't seen any villages near this base, so I definitely want to keep this guy around. I planned on name tagging him to keep him from despawning, but he actually picked up an item all on his own. What a gentleman. Up next, I want to renovate this small hallway that shoots off from my storage room. I've been using it as a temporary furnace room so far, and I think it's time to make that official. I cleaned up the area as usual and planned out where I wanted the furnaces to be. The twistiness of the corridor actually played into my favor here. It let me set up 4 separate smelting stations with 3 furnaces each. Behind each trio of furnaces, I dug out some space and built a 3-way item splitter. Basically, I just set up some hoppers and positioned a hopper minecart in a way that would split the items evenly. I also added a chest at the base of each section to collect the items that are done smelting. After carrying the red floor over from the storage room, this room was finished. So far in this world, I've been living off food that I hunted from random animals that spawned in the wild, and while that's good enough to get me this far, I need something a little bit more reliable. Eventually, I'll probably make a hoglin farm above the nether roof, but for today, I want to build an automatic chicken cooker. I thought this triple dead-end intersection would make a perfect home for it, as it's just about the right size and way too small for anything else. A chicken cooker is a pretty simple machine that I don't see used very often anymore. This machine is great because it requires no input once it's set up, and it automatically cooks the chicken for you. Building the farm was the easy part. Now I gotta get some chickens across an ocean and through a stronghold. I was able to find one chicken on a small island near the mushroom biome, so it was pretty easy to boat them over to the base. I was a bit worried that it would immediately throw itself into the lava, but they ended up being pretty cooperative. I could technically leave it at one chicken and use its eggs to make more, but I was feeling impatient. I took a trip back to the spawn base we made in episode 1 and grabbed a couple more. I bred those chickens repeatedly until I had a solid stockpile. Also, while I was throwing some eggs into the pit, I actually had one hatch into 4 baby chickens. I've known this was possible since I was a kid, but I've never experienced it in person. I looked it up afterward, and apparently it has a 0.3% chance of occurring. With another room down, I now have access to an unlimited supply of cooked chicken. The last little section on my list is this hallway, which I want to convert into a 2-tall flower farm. By the way, I decided to remove all of the cracked stone bricks in the farming area and I'll replace them with mossy ones. I think this looks a bit better and it adds a visual difference between the different sections of the stronghold. Anyway, back to the flowers. These machines are very simple. You just need some dispensers full of bone meal, rapidly powered with a redstone clock. This is one of the major benefits of building that moss-powered bone meal farm from earlier. A steady supply of bone meal means that I can get away with building inefficient dye farms like this one, instead of having to build the much better, but much more complicated, 1-tall flower farms. To use the farm, I just have to flip the levers above each section, and flowers will start pouring in. That was the last redstone project I wanted to do today, but I do have one more small build. I feel like the entrance to the base could use a little flair, so I built this cute little lily pad. Alright, that's all I'm going to be doing for this episode. I appreciate that you watched this far into the video, and I hope you're liking the series so far. I'm not positive what I'll be working on in the next episode, but right now I'm leaning towards either an Enderman farm or a villager trading hall. I guess we'll see. Thanks again for watching. I hope you'll stick around for the next project.